I see that a number of your world records were caught with a fly rod. So what are your first memories of fly fishing?
46, when I was only 16 years old. I was tying flies commercially, bonefish flies, and I had them in the two main fishing tackle shops that did some fly fishing sales in the area of Miami. And I saved my money from that. I probably only got like $3 a dozen for the flies, and I would tie them in my garage on a regular Sears and Roebuck vise, big vise, not a fly tying vise. You know, I didn't have a bobbin or anything. I'd use my fingers with the thread, but these flies became really great for bonefish, and people wanted to buy them, so I even made up cards for them. They'd have a dozen on a card. I used that money to buy my very first fly rod in 1946. It was a split bamboo fly rod. A South Bend 49 was the number of it, 3-piece, and it had a great big set in it from too much use, and it didn't cost me much money, which was all I could afford. My first reel wasn't much either. It was a Ocean City Plymouth, had very little drag. The fly line was a level C fly line, so that would be a level 7 weight fly line. One day at the Rod and Reel Club on Miami Beach, a fellow by the name of Frank Baxter, who was a great fly fisherman of that era, was taking a fly line off of his reel, and he was going to throw it away. I said, you know, what's wrong with that line, Frank? He said, oh, it's worn out. He said, I'm just going to throw it away. I said, can I have it? And he said, oh, sure. What are you going to do with it? I said, I'm going to fish it. I'm going to use it. He said, well, it's going to need some work on it. I said, hey, it's a lot better than I have now. I have a level line. That line, I said, what? Tell me what it is. He said, well, it's a GBF torpedo head, Cortland GBF torpedo head. Now, what a great name for a fly line. A couple of years, a year and a half after World War II ended, a torpedo head. Well, I took that fly line, cleaned it up, put that on my reel. I could not believe how my casting improved. Casting a level line made me really work at double hauling and stopping and forming a loop. Now with a torpedo head, a weight forward taper, man, I could shoot that line out there, and here he was going to throw it away. So that was my entree truly into fly fishing.
You tied flies as a youth. Did you continue to tie flies into your career?
I continued tying flies from the 1940s up until through the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, but I developed, tarpon became my love, my first love on fly fishing, and I developed a fly, the Apte tarpon fly was the name. Somebody told me at a tournament one time that, oh, they saw my tarpon fly on a U.S. postage stamp. And I said, yeah, sure. This is in the Keys. I said, yeah, sure. It's going to snow today, too, here in the Keys. Well, it was true. I went to the post office, local post office, the following day, spoke to the postmistress, and sure enough, she had them for sale. And I bought a bunch of them. I still have a bunch of them. And I get so many requests, you can't believe, from people that want a signed stamp and that want the actual fly that's on the stamp. Well, I have had people pay me $100 for that fly numerous times. I just don't have the time or the inclination to tie them, even for $100 a piece. Now, I don't mind when they send me the strip of stamps, signing the stamp and mailing it back to them. But I just don't have the time. I'm too busy to take time. And my fly tying desk downstairs is just so cluttered, and I don't have the equipment for it. Nice to be able to have your fly and your name on a U.S. postage stamp. A lot of people have asked me, do I get royalties from all those sales? Back then the stamp was 29 cents. And I said, you got to be kidding. I didn't even know that this was being done until after it was out.
You have so many world records. Was that a conscious decision to go out and get those, or is that something that just happened for you?
You know, that's an interesting question. Sure, you know, I've had more than 44 world records that I still have the documentation of. I know I caught more than that I could not find the the certificates from them, so I don't claim actually more than the ones that I have the certificates of. I actually went out to catch world records, and I always rigged my equipment properly that would fit within the bounds of IGFA world records. Back then, IGFA was not keeping fly rod records. Back then, it was the Saltwater Fly Rodders of America was the organization keeping the records, and they had an advisory board of Joe Brooks, Lee Wolf, Al McLean, Charlie Waterman. I was on the advisory board. Mark Sosin was the main records keeper. We had an advisory board of the real who's who in the fly fishing world, and it was no hanky-pank. It was the real thing. So yeah, I went out to catch a lot of world records because I was now starting to be a consultant for a number of companies that manufacture fishing equipment. Penn Reels, the DuPont company, I was their only fishing consultant that they ever had at that time. They came out with Stren line. Wasn't fly fishing, but you know, I caught a lot of world records on their equipment, on their line. Caught world records on Penn Reels. You know, if you are as fortunate as I have been, and I really have been, I've been blessed to be able to make a living out of two things that you really like, really love, flying and fishing. Now, fishing is my first love. Flying was a means to an end. I enjoyed flying, but it was truly a means to an end to give me time in between flights to go fishing and to get me to the hard to get to places around the world at no cost. So sure, get lucky, study hard, do your homework, and work at it.
Well, Stu, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I have to say that your stories and memories have been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your still busy schedule to come and share these great memories with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed doing this, telling it to you and to you out there. And, you know, I enjoy sharing my life's memories, all of it interesting and some of it really exciting. And I hope we can do something like this again.